Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
All right, we are back for round 2 of this epic song. And when we last left, we were finishing the first section of the vocals there, and now we were getting ready to head into an instrumental section that I really thought would have been a bit too long for the last part of the episode. So we're going to go ahead and start from there now. I'm going to play you back the last bit of the vocals so you can kind of get a feel for where we're at, just in case you weren't listening in immediate succession from one episode to the next. So a little bit of familiarity and then buckle up because the song really takes off from here. It sounds like there's a tuba maybe playing along with the band, just doing long notes. And really the band here is supporting the brass section, which is interesting. And then they join together for those little transitions. Very, very cool part, very powerful, a great way to come out of that powerful vocal and just, not do an immediate digression, which would have been typical, but to just, keep the power and the momentum going, keep the emotion in top form. And this is really guys playing at the top of their game right here. And I absolutely just love this passage. I mean, this is just amazing right here. You've got this great little break that Paul provides. He keeps things going, but just gives us all a bit of a breath before we head into this next section, which starts with another series of great swells on the Hammond B3. And Mick and Ken are just playing together so beautifully here. A little bit of jazzy feel coming in from Keith Baker on drums. Just this is a term that I don't use a lot with music, but for parts like this, I think it's the right phrase, at least to me, is well-crafted. This is just such a well-crafted piece right here that I don't know how long it took them to put this together, to kind of perfect it or to record it with such precision, but it's just beautiful. And those swells in between on the keyboard make it just great. The rhythm section is just, keeping it moving forward, playing some interesting stuff that's interesting on its own, yet not distracting from what the leads are doing. It's just a really cool little part right here. Just wow. First of all, if you aren't listening to the bass through at least some of this, from the beginning of this section all the way through, Paul is just all over the place, playing, keeping a great rhythm going, but also just creating a very melodic space on the low end of the audio spectrum. Keith is just playing some great jazzy feel stuff to keep it moving forward. You've got Ken, you've got Mick, you've got the brass section. I mean, this has got everything in it. They could not have possibly thrown anything more exciting into this to keep it moving. And I don't know how much was maybe improvised during this, or just kind of like, hey, play within this segment, or here's an open spot for you to kind of just let loose. And Paul had talked about that, about how this was just an opportunity for him to just go. And I think this is one of those sections he was probably referring to, because he is just on it. Really exciting. Kind of a jazzy, kind of a rocky feel to what the bass is doing. Just great. And then the power of the brass and the organ together. Really, it's groundbreaking stuff. It would be groundbreaking, I think, if it came out today. But thinking about the fact that we're talking about 1971 here, I mean, there was not, this stuff just didn't exist. And I think if you're able to put it in the context of the actual time frame of the release of this stuff, or the writing of this stuff, it's even more astounding than the product we're hearing. Now, this section is the one part of the mix that I really don't think you could do anything about, to be honest. But what is a shame is that some of the dynamics of the snare drum are a little bit lost in the mix. You have to kind of strain to hear some of the little bit of buzz rolls that Keith is playing. And the fact is that it's a matter of the brass is so powerful here, and you really can't back that off, because it wouldn't fit in with the song. It would be weaker than the other parts where the brass is strong. So that has to be consistent. And but there's so much that Keith is playing here. It's just really masterful work on the snare especially. And Paul's just keeping the groove going. The swells of the key, like everything is here. It's just so crazy. It's a madness, but not madness at the same time. It's very intelligently written, very well performed. I don't think you could do anything better with this concept. I really don't. I love this long, slow build. I mean, you're coming from a lot of powerful sounds, really stuff that just pushes your chest into your body, and then you need to have some breaks or some digressions when you're going to do a song that's this long. It really feels a little bit Beethoven-esque, I want to say, because he really understood, especially in his symphonies, that you can't just be full driving the whole time. Of course, in a rock band, there's some instances where you can, but I think when you're working with an orchestra, especially, it's good to have more of a story musically as well in a song that's this long. So here they're kind of slowing it down a little bit. I really love the way that Ken and Mick are playing together. And then in that last little bit, I love the wah pedal work that Mick is doing, just adding these nice little sounds. They're not a riff. It's not special effects, but it's just these little things that keep it interesting and keep it moving it forward. And you hear the Woodwinds putting in some stuff. It's just great overall. And I love the direction that this is heading. And it's different from everything that we've heard in the song so far. At this point, we're at about a little over 9 minutes. And it's still interesting. I'm not bored with the song. I'm so drawn in that it was really hard for me to actually stop the song and say, I wanted to talk here, because I really just want to sit here and listen to it and not talk. But I'm here to talk about the song. I'm not here to listen to it, because if you guys want to listen to it, just put the record on. I love that little build that comes in and just drops right before the vocals start. That's pretty cool. I think that's a technique that could be utilized a lot more than I hear it anyway. And then, of course, David's got his gentle yet strong vocal. I don't want to say powerful. I think there's a difference between powerful and strong. When I think powerful, I think like, hard, gritty power. And when I think strong, I think just, not the gentle voice that he started singing with, but that has a thickness to it. Definitely, he's putting a little more of his belly into it, and but not just driving kind of strength or power, but strength. And I really love that choice in this song, because I think it really works, and he really just knows how to bring the emotion right out of you. It really just kind of just reaches in right through your gut and just twists and starts pulling at your organs. And I absolutely love that. And then, everyone's just backing it up. You've got these little fills. I love what the Woodwinds are doing in this song. Just a powerful and beautiful passage. And I love the rhythm behind all of this too. I think that, this rhythm, which kind of goes on throughout the next few parts, is just really powerful, has a great groove to it. It's not overpowering, it's not forceful, but it keeps the song moving at a great pace. Just really good stuff. I've said many times before that I'm not that big on lyrics, but one thing I think of the vocals, I think of it as another instrument, just like you would a guitar or a keyboard. But I still, even with that, I would rarely want anything to solo over that. And what I'm hearing here with the Woodwinds, though, is just brilliant. It's so over the top of what David's doing. but not crushing it, not drowning it out. But it's just over the top in register, and it actually fits really, really well in that space. Normally, I probably wouldn't have experimented with that, but I think that came out very, very nicely. Even though it's not going in between where he sings, but just running right over it, it still really works. And of course, I forgot to mention in the last section too that we've now brought back again that great classic Uriah Heep vocal choral sound, just very powerful, just so beautifully crafted, and they blend the voices so well together in the studio, both in pitch and volume, that they're untouchable, just untouchable. So this is one of those parts that I was talking about earlier where there's just so much going on that I don't even know what I want to listen to. There's a blistering solo from Mick. I personally, of all the songs that I know well from Uriah Heep, and there are many that have great guitar solos in them, honestly, these are some of my favorites. And there's a couple different rounds of this particular pass where he does the solo, then they do the bridge, and then a solo. And every time I'm like, give me one more, Mick, just one more solo. They're so incredible. I want to hear more. But at the same time, listening to what Ken and Paul are doing melodically to keep the rest of the song moving forward and giving Mick that foundation to play on, and what Keith is doing as well on the drums, it's just, there's so much there that's interesting that I want to hear. I love the rhythmic melody that Ken is playing on the keyboard. I've always loved that. What Paul's doing is great, and there's a lot of variations that he's putting in on that. He's not just playing the same thing over and over. He's varying what he's doing quite a bit, and that makes it interesting. And then you've just got a great groove on the drums. It's just such an incredible part that, I'll start going, okay, this time I'm going to listen to the guitar. I'm really going to focus on this solo. And halfway through, I'm like, well, wait a minute, though, what did the bass just do? There's just too many things to hear. But I love that. I love that it's a song that I can go back to over and over and over again. And sometimes I'll find some other sound that I didn't pick up on because I was paying attention to something else. It's got so many layers, this song. More so, I think, than the rest of their music, mainly because of the fact that the orchestra is so active. They're not just there backing up the riff, thickening up what's going on. They're actually active and soloing and swelling and doing things on their own that it's not the typical classical rock band merger. And I think about some of the bands that have done that. Take, just for an example, take Metallica and some of the stuff that I've heard that they did with an orchestra. The orchestra was basically just doubling a lot of what they were doing for the riffs. Like I heard a version, I want to say it was Enter Sandman, and they were just basically like the strings were just doubling what the guitars were doing. And it sounded interesting, but these are arrangements that are working as if they were another band member or a few different band members. And I find that fascinating because there's so much going on here that it's really hard to just focus on one instrument or focus on the song and go, I kind of feel like, what is that they say when people yell squirrel? I kind of feel like people are yelling squirrel left and right in the song, and my attention is constantly being diverted from one thing to another. But I love that because there's very little music that I've ever heard that makes me feel that way, which is a huge statement coming from me. I'm a huge fan of classical music. I've listened to it all my life. And there's a lot of complexity from guys like Beethoven and Mozart, especially, Those are the two I probably listen to the most, Beethoven being far ahead of Mozart in that case. But you get used to having a lot of different things going on that work together, but this is just on another level than that to me. I think if Beethoven could have heard this piece, I think he would have been pissed that he didn't write it first. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I have to think that at the very least, if you could get him to understand the distorted guitars and the drums being played this way and all that, I think if you could get past the cultural barrier of the two different styles of music, I think he would have been impressed. I really do. What a smoking hot solo from Mick Box. And I don't understand how he is not always listed in the top ranked guitarist, because he is a phenomenal player. He's an incredible writer, but his playing, it just takes you to another level of what music can be when you listen to him. And this is, like I said, this is some of my favorite solos from him, but it's just so unbelievable. I mean, you wouldn't think that people would be able to play like that, but he does. And he's just got such a great tone. Love that high note at the end. But I also want you guys to check out some other parts of this section too. The tonality of Ken's B3 is really interesting, because the higher notes that he's playing during the lower section of the rhythm, of the melody, I should say, or I guess riff would probably be the best word. So when he's playing that first section, the B3 has a certain tone. When he goes up, that higher section sounds different. Like the tonality is completely different. And I really like that contrast between the two. It almost feels like he's playing on a different instrument, but it's all coming from the B3. Really cool part. Paul and Keith are really keeping it together here, just playing interesting stuff. It just got such a great groove to it. The song moves forward so well. But are you guys feeling like I'm feeling, where it's like, okay, I want to listen to this. Wait, what's going on here? Wait, what about that? There's just so much. And I feel like I said that really fast because I'm all worked up because it's such a great song. This song is always one that, like, this is the section of the whole song that gets stuck in my head. And I'm like, all right, I need to listen to the song like right now. Otherwise, this is just going to go on for days. And I'll listen to the song and it doesn't stop. It stays in my head and it goes on for days, which is great because I love it. But man, it just goes to show that there is something really magical about this song. And, if reincarnation is a thing, I really hope I come across this song in my next life. So before everybody starts writing me about whether past lives are a real thing or not, we're not going to get into that. We're getting into this song, and we're getting into this amazing solo from Mick. And these 30-second notes that he's playing, they're so precise. Every one of them cuts through, and the tone and the register that he's using on the musical scale is absolutely perfect here because it allows the guitar to really shine and cut through the rest of the instruments, but he's also playing at a level where it's just not dominating it, and it's very well mixed here. And also, I love the level of distortion on the guitar. It's not too much to where it buries it and makes it mushy. It's just right where you feel it's a rock song. You feel it's got that power to it, but it's not overbearing in any way. And the other thing I want to point out, you've heard over the last couple of sections, if you've been listening to the rest of the band, I really love the way that they repeat the riff, but they also connect it with this part where they drop down and step back up into it. And I really like that. This section, even though we've heard it a couple of times now with a different solo over it and little variations that the rest of the guys are playing, it hasn't gotten boring. It's something I could listen to. They could do another 3 rounds of this and I would be very excited to hear it. Unfortunately, this is the last solo. And already, again, I'm like, all right, just one more, Mick, please, just one more. These are so good. But we're not going to get it. We're going to get back into the rest of the song as we head towards the finish of it already. And we're 13 minutes, 46 seconds in, and we're getting close to the end. So I think I'll just finish this out in this episode instead of, I was figuring I might have to break it up into 3, but it doesn't look like I need to do that. So this will be a little bit longer than the other one. But yeah, there's so much great stuff to listen to in this song. You'll probably want to listen to it 3 or 4 times and just try and focus on different sections to really grasp everything that's going on here and really appreciate the depths that they went to for this piece. Now, where did that come from? That was a whole nother part as they bridge us back to setting us up for the last vocal here. And I love what the Woodwinds are playing through that. Those trills are just beautiful, beautifully played. I don't know how many woodwind players we've got here, but that really sounds nice and thick. It's, again, very well blended in the mix, not overpowering. And those flute frequencies, I can tell you, can get really ear-piercing sometimes. That's probably, for me, one of the hardest instruments to blend in is a flute because they're so piercing at times. So you really have to be careful how you EQ them. But they blended them very beautifully here. Just very powerful stuff. And then those stops that we have, they're fast, they're abrupt, and they really just knock you in the chest and say, hey, we're going somewhere else now. Love it. Absolutely love it. So we're about a half hour into this segment. I think this would be a good place to cut it as we wind down from the instrumental section and get back to the song for the last verse. And thank you guys so much. I'm really excited to get to the next part and share the rest of this wonderful song with you guys. We'll see you then. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!